the defensive end battle. So obviously you have Colin Simmons on one side. Ethan Burke seems to be the other guy penciled in on the other side for right now. Who else do you think could factor into that discussion, Brandon?
That's a very that's a very interesting discussion because you know to me that's a deep position and one that they I think Colin Simmons is going to get double teamed heavily this year, so we're going to need multiple bodies to step up. Uh, Besides Burke, we have Lance Jackson, we have a Seth Colton, who I think, given the opportunity, given enough reps, I think those guys could be uh young guys who step up into that, rotational role. Maybe one of them takes uh reps from Burke. You never know. But the guy I'm like most interested about is Justice Terry. And I say that because he has some versatility to him. He's a guy, he can play inside, he can play outside, but like he's very intriguing just in terms of his traits. So it'd be interesting to see like, who we roll out in different packages. And Trey Moore's still there, right? He's a guy who's used to rushing the passer. How like and I know he's moving back a level, but when you need a play, you want, just your best players out there. I have a hard time believing he's not going that way, rushing the quarterback in some aspects. So, um, I think it's a very talented room, but at the same time, I'm so excited to see just how they do it because I have something telling me that Terry being a bigger guy, but he has some versatility and his ability to rush the passer. I'm excited to see how it all pans out.
No, I agree. I think it's going to be super interesting. I'm going to get to this comment real quick before I jump in. What's up, Timothy? Everyone go over there and subscribe to his YouTube channel as well. I appreciate you being here. So yeah, I think this is a super deep room. I think it's the deepest room on the team personally. I've heard a lot about
Ooh,
Zena Umuzulu as well. I think he's going to be a player that plays a lot in this rotation.
yeah,
Brad Spence, moving down permanently to edge, a guy that I really like coming into Arkansas. And I was kind of interested to see where he fits in on this team because, he played a little bit of all jack of all trades at Arkansas, and now he's
right.
permanently at edge. And now it's kind of the opposite. Like Trey Moore's going to be that jack of all trades guy, and he'll play linebacker. When we get to there, we'll talk about him. But you have Colton Vosick, you already mentioned. You have Lance Jackson. I think you're going to see Lance Jackson and Justice Terry probably slide in on third and long situations into the defensive
Mm,
tackle spots and kind of
I can see
rush.
that.
So they have, that NASCAR package that they have
Yeah,
and get to the quarterback with those two guys on the inside. And then on the outside, I think you're going to have Colin Simmons and maybe like a Zena Umluzulu or a Brad Spence on the other side in that NASCAR package. But this room is the room I'm most confident in on the whole team. I think they're loaded. I think they're 5 to 6 deep. And I think they're going to be able to get after the quarterback pretty easily. And they're all different, too. I think that's a cool thing. You have guys that, like Brad Spence and Colin Simmons, say, hey, go get the quarterback. Then you have
right.
Ethan Burke, who I think is more of a run stuffer, can play in that Baron Sorrell role, where I think
Yep.
he was very underrated on that team. I've always been a big fan of Baron Sorrell setting the edge on the run. And we're going to have to find someone that can do that as well as he can. I don't know if Ethan Burke can do it as well as he could, but he's definitely probably the best at it that on this team right now, at least.
Burke is long. He's strong at the point of attack. So that probably is his role. Be the first and second down run stopper. Probably have a couple third downs a game. But to your point, on third down, it's gonna be pivotal to get just speed on the field at every position. But yeah, this room is very talented, very deep. I'm super excited because when you have a good D line room, it helps those guys on the back end. When you don't have to cover as long because you got guys who get after the quarterback, like having that depth up front is going to help the growth of the guys behind them.
No, 100%. And it allows someone like Lance Jackson and Justice Terry to come on a little bit slower. 3 to 4 years ago, you kind of had to throw these 5-star all world talented players in the mix. And you don't really have to do that anymore. You can bring them on
Right.
slowly. And I think you're going to see, I said this yesterday on our show Monday, that Matthew Caldwell in the quarterback room would probably be the backup quarterback early on because of the experience, but then later in the year, you're going to see someone like Trey Owens become the backup. I think it's kind of the same situation in the defensive end room where someone like Azina Umlozulu or Brad Spence gets a lot more playing time early, but then later on in the year, I think Justice Terry and Lance Jackson, just because they're so damn talented, are going to
Right.
come on and play a bigger role later in the year.
It's going to be hard to keep some of these guys off the field. Like, again, much like how we talked about last week in terms of depth, this is a good problem to have when there's so many bodies that you can rotate in. Also think that really allows you to keep guys fresh up front. They aren't as big as the D tackles who we will talk about, but those guys being fresh and being able to beat up on tackles in different ways. That's the other thing in terms of how different that room is. It's going to benefit them in so many ways because the tackles are going to have to prepare for 4 different guys, 4 different rush plans. You know what I mean? So yeah, this is a very interesting room, but that depth and that young talent, I think they're going to get on the field early. And I think, at some point, to your point, one of those young guys are going to catapult themselves into a constant, steady role where they're constantly making plays. Like I'm really excited about this group.
No, I agree. David Keith Williams, thank you for being here. However, regarding Brad Spence and Trey Moore, I think it'd be done at the detriment of the team. Yeah, I could see that to where
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, where you kind of muddied the rules here between the guys. And like Trey Moore did come on really strong the latter half of the year. I think when I looked back at his stats, the last 5 games, I believe he had 5.5 or 6 sacks. He had like all his sacks then because he kind of had his role defined of, hey, I'm going to go back to rushing the passer. And he's really good at that. I mean, at UTSA, he had 10 plus sacks. So, but I trust this staff. That's the thing too. Like this staff has made very little bad decisions, in my opinion. The only bad decision that comes to mind, I've talked about this, I think not starting Jonathan Brooks a couple years ago over CJ Baxter was the only bad decision I could think of. Like that was literally it. That's the one I think of. But what do you think about that?
They do a good job, like you said, like they know their guys. So it's something they know within Trey Moore that he's going to make the transition rather easily. But that's a hard transition to go from moving forward most of the time. Now you're up, moving laterally, have to make calls, have to make reads. Now, granted, he has a stud beside him, right? But at the same time, it's to a man, you want to hold your end of the bargain on that defense because I think this defense is really talented and it's plenty of depth. Also, they have the luxury of, let's say Trey Moore, it's not working out. Brad Spence has done it. You know what I mean? So now we say, okay, well, let's flip them back. You know what I mean? Like to me, they have options to bring Trey Moore kind of along and not, not throw too much at him. But again, if he can handle it mentally, then I think that's like 90% of it. If he can handle in between the ears and all the motions and shifts and adjustments that come with being in the box, we'll be fine.
No, 100%. And I think the point of attack for this Texas team as a whole, I'm a big was a big Colts fan with Peyton Manning. I'm more of a Peyton Manning than Colts fan. But when he was in the NFL, that he wanted to get leads and then unleash Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney when you're up 14 points, so you don't have to really play the run. I think Texas is kind of wants to do the same thing because you have all these talented pass rushers. I mean, if we get up 14 points on these teams, you could have Brad Spence and Trey Moore on the field at the same time, along with Colin Simmons and other guys on the edge, and just unleash them to rush
and wreak havoc. So, absolutely,
yeah, exactly.
Good call. So that's a very valid point. I never thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think that this team. I mean, if they get leads early, I think they're going to be able to smother teams. I really believe that. I think that's going to be the key to this season is get up early and then just unleash hell because you legitimately have 6 guys on this team where if you just put them on the field and say, go get the quarterback, it's going to be hard to stop it. Yeah.
Right. Well, and so to that point, and like we go back to just the losses of last season, I think that's why teams ran the ball. You control the clock, you control the pace, the tempo, and you don't let those dogs hunt, right? Like you keep it third and manageable, run past downs, and like so. I'm really excited to see because like at some point you just want the best 11 out there and critical moments. you want the best 11. And I don't see how, you don't have Trey Moore and Spence on the field. To your point with Colin Simmons, it has to be a package. Like, has to be, right? You would think.
I would assume so. Yeah. I mean,
that's
if
too
you're,
much talent.
yeah, exactly. I mean, they created that NASCAR package with Johnny Nansen last year because he saw the talent they have pass rushing, and they said, why don't we initiate where you have basically 8 guys that are smaller but can go get after the quarterback and really only have 3 defensive backs on the backside. I think that's what you're going to see even more this year because you have so much talent on this side of the ball. So
Yeah.
it's going to be very interesting.